this camera and another one for this live stream, but I'm so happy to be here with all of you today. And I'm going to talk a bit about my poetry book, Don't Wait to Light the Candles, and the story behind it. But also, you can get a signed copy within the next 40 minutes, exclusively here on Talk Shop Live. And if you just comment shop, a link will be sent to you where you can get a copy. So yeah, this is kind of a Q&A. If you have any questions at all, I'm going to open with a spoken the poetry collection and talk about the story behind it. First, a little about me. My name's Allie, and I'm a poet and a fantasy author. And poetry has kept me really, really honest with myself. And I feel like there's nothing in life that is too much, too intense, too emotional, um, that poetry can't handle. And I think what makes a poem really potent and really good is if it's honest. And so it really is kind of this archaeology of just staying really honest with myself every single day. And this book took me on a really big personal journey in a way that previous books necessarily haven't challenged me as much. So I'm excited to jump into that. But yeah, first I'm going to do a little spoken word for you from the book, um, and then you're welcome to ask any questions. Okay, so here we go. I will love you if I never see you again, just as I loved you when I saw you every moment. I'll love you when your face is muddled by memory and all I can recall is the sound of your laugh. I'll love you if we make new memories, and I once again hear my favorite song as I listen to the thump thump of your heart. I'll love you if you marry someone else and support you always from afar. I'll love you if you one day marry me, and that tattoo on your hand again means more than a scar. I'll love you wherever you go, no matter how far, because you're as intimately a part of me as the air that I breathe. And if one day I am to see you and you've built a whole new life, kids of your own, books you've written, and a beautiful wife, I will smile at you and nod, because all know that our love is the foundation that we both stand on, and no amount of time or space could possibly erase this home that I have carved out for you in my heart. And though I love you became I have to leave now, it was only because I knew that we wouldn't become who we were meant to if we stayed together. But I promise, through it all, I will love you forever. So that was actually the first poem that I wrote for this collection. I wrote it 3 years ago. Um, so thank you for listening and for being with me here today. I'm introverted, so doing live streams is a bit of a stretch point for me, but I'm just so happy even to be with you guys online. So I'm gonna dive into some of your questions now. Um, okay, so Mimi is asking, what was your writing process like for this collection? Did the poems come quickly or over time? That is a very funny story. The first half of the collection took me 3 years to write, and I was only writing when I felt a really strong emotional charge or I felt inspired by my experience. I was writing essentially out of necessity. And then I hand in the manuscript, and my manager calls me and she says, "Where's the other half of the book? You owe another 86 pounds." I was like, "What do you mean?" And I had misunderstood that we needed 200 poems for there to be a hardcover. And so, very graciously, my publisher gave me a 24-day extension. So I had 24 days to write 86 poems. And I remember thinking, oh my God, is this going to dilute the quality of the work? How am I going to write this much? And my manager just said, don't ask how, just show up and find the poems. And at first, I wanted to lock myself in a room and just write and write and write. And then I realized poems come from living and they come from being really brave, not just from sitting there and observing. And so I said yes to everything, every adventure for 24 days. I lived and I lived and I lived in every conversation and everything I went through. I knew there was a poem inside of it. So that is the first question and me babbling. And again, for those of you who are new here, if you'd like a signed copy, you can just comment shop and they'll send you the link. Um, the title, Don't Wait to Light the Candles, feels symbolic. What does it mean to you personally? Caroline is asking. The title to me, I spent the first half of my life very shy. And again, I felt very comfortable observing people. And so Don't Wait to Light the Candles was such a symbol of how I operated for the first half of my life, of like storing these perfect, beautiful candles and waiting for the right moment to light them and waiting for the right moment to say, I love you, and waiting for my courage to kick in. And I feel like I pendulum swung the opposite way where I finally realized we don't know how long we have. We don't know how many hours we have with the people we love. And so, especially in how uncertain the world is now, that saying to me means don't wait to seize the beauty in front of you. Don't wait to give all of your love while you're here. Um, okay, Ren is asking, was there a central message or feeling you hoped readers would walk away with? I want this book to feel like a permission slip that in a world of overstimulation and distraction where it's very easy to be apathetic and kind of self-soothe, that it is a total rebellion to just embrace your humanity and to go there into the emotion, into the pain, into the grief, into the joy, all of it. Like that is what the world needs most of. And so I want this book to act as a permission slip to live really imperfectly and be brave enough to make mistakes. Um, Okay, Angela said, many of your poems touch on love, loss, and healing. How do those themes connect in this collection? I think every author, I'll just speak for myself, I write about what haunts me and I write about what I care the most about. And those two things are often very interlinked. And so, I'm afraid of losing the people I love and afraid of death, and I write the most about it. I write about the people I love all the time. You will find the closest people in my life, each one of them has a poem in this book. And that is because I'm trying to light that candle and capture a glimpse of their beauty and of who they are into this poem so that it will live on. And so those themes are always intersected throughout my work. Um, okay, Mimi said, do you see this book as a continuation of your earlier work or a new chapter? I used to feel embarrassed about my earlier work because I would write the collection and then I felt like I would outgrow it. And I would always tell people, don't buy those books, like wait for the new book. And I started to realize I do that with every single book, but how special it is that when I'm 90 years old, if, God willing, I make it there, you'll be able to go back to my first book when I was 19 years old and see the whole journey and see how imperfect it was and see how I grew in my craft and again stumbled and made so many mistakes. So it is a continuation. What was your writing process like for this collection? Did the poems come quickly or over time? I think I touched on that. They had to come quickly. But the other thing I'll say is because of the time constraint in which I had to write those poems, that was the only focus I had. And there's something to be said about honing all of my focus into a singular thing because my life all of a sudden became a quest hunting for these poems instead of this kind of anxiety of should I be doing this or should I be doing that? And this kind of fear around my destiny and if I'm doing things right. And instead, it's almost like when you're sitting on an airplane and there's nothing else you can do. And so there's this peace that settles in. I felt that peace settle into me. Were there specific life moments that sparked the poems? Um, that question is from Zoe, and all of them are sparked from my real life. Every single one of them. That is what I'm inspired by. Is just how closely can I pay attention and listen to life. What's your favorite poem in the book? I can't remember it in real time, but it's one that starts and says, I want every ending to be met by a roaring round of applause. Throw the wilted flowers in the air and stomp your feet in celebration. Don't say goodbye or tell me you'll miss me. don't thank me for our time together because nothing ends, least of all love. And I just butchered that. I'm sure it's written better than I just spoke it, hopefully. Um, but I love that idea that nothing ever ends. And instead of being like, oh, why am I losing this thing? Just being like, I want to celebrate the fact that this was here for this brief and perfect moment. Um, okay. Do you usually start with a clear idea or do you discover meaning as you write? I love writing because it's an exploration of the question. I'm not a teacher or a preacher, or a guide or facilitator of any kind. I don't have any answers, but it is my job and my duty and my responsibility to ask really big questions and wrestle with them throughout books and books and books. And maybe I spend a lifetime wrestling with the same question, but it requires a lot of courage to stretch those muscles and ask things beyond what I know. What poem in Don't Wait to Light the Candles was the hardest for you to write emotionally? Ah, thank you, Jasmine. um, I finally wrote one poem about a family member, and I had never written anything about it before, and you'll find it in there, but it touches a lot on mental illness and was very, very hard for me to write. But I felt a weight lift from my chest that I didn't know was there after I wrote it. It was like the little girl in me got to feel seen. So yeah. How do you decide when a poem is finished? I really like raw writing. I like imperfect writing. I like poetry that has a pulse to it, and I think a lot of my poems are not grammatically correct, and I'm sure an English professor would probably be horrified reading my work. Um, but I usually write the poem. I take a few days away from it and let it kind of season and ferment. I come back, I see if every line feels as true as it could possibly be, and then that's it. I don't have like a heavy editing process with my poetry the way I do with my novels. Okay. How do you balance vulnerability with privacy when writing such personal poetry? It is really personal and it is really vulnerable, but you never know who I'm writing about and you never know what the personal details are. And so the people in my life are protected, and no one knows what I ate for breakfast that morning. I'm not exposing the personal details of my life the way that I maybe did 10 years ago. Um, I'm just sharing the poems. And the beautiful thing about that and about keeping my personal life out of it is those poems get to belong to everyone. Everyone gets to have their own relationship and their own meaning, and then suddenly they're not mine. And I think that's really special. Okay, Lindsay asked, your work is very emotionally open. Oh, I did answer that. If there's a poem that's difficult to share. Okay, Elizabeth, do you ever worry about how people connected to your poems might interpret them? Um, that's just really not my business. I've been on social media since I was 16, and if I could just, I don't have regrets in life, but if I could just have gone back in time and said, it's actually one of the poems in the book, do not despair about who the world wants you to be. The world was never truly watching. Exit stage left and send away your scripts because the best lives are the ones worth disapproving of. And someone is always going to think my poems are awful and terrible, and someone else is going to think that they are the best thing on God's green earth, and it's so not my business either way. I have really close people in my life who are wonderful writers and who give me very honest feedback, and so I send it to my beta readers, and I also take the feedback of my publishers and editors, and then that's it, and then I did the best I can, and again, it's not mine anymore. So I mean, am I completely unaffected by people's opinions? No, that would be a lie, but I do my best not to look. Um, Aubrey asked, what do you hope readers feel immediately after finishing the book? I hope they feel a little braver. I hope they turn up the volume on who they are a little bit more, even if it's just one notch. And I hope no one waits. Um, is there a poem in the book you feel especially connected to right now? Ooh, I think the final one. It's a poem that's pinned on the top of my Instagram called Living Your Life in Reverse, and that poem also was a really big journey to write, and it makes sense to me that it's the last poem in the book, and it's such a good reminder of, at the end of my life, how I'd like to look back on it and feel proud of how I've lived and how I've loved. Um, and again, for those of you who are new, if you're interested in a signed copy of the book, you can just comment shop and one of the team members will send you a link to order. These signed copies are exclusively available on this live stream, so it is a really special thing. Um, okay, back to the questions. Okay. Emma said, have readers responded strongly to a particular poem in ways that surprised you? Hmm. Yeah, there's a poem in there about death and how I would spend my last moment. It's called For My Last Second I Danced with You. And I never expect people to really connect with my poems about death because it's the one thing that we all just kind of cover our eyes and plug our ears and we're like, la, I don't want to think about this. And so when people do connect to those more intense pieces, it actually means a lot to me and it surprises me because it just shows. Um, I think death reveals how much we love life, and I think it clarifies the places in which we're maybe not being fully honest with ourselves, and it's such a wonderful teacher, and so I was surprised when people connected with that one because it's more intense. Um, Amy said, "I've always admired poets. I'm curious to know, how do you know when a poem is finished?" I did answer, yeah, I did answer that one a while ago. Okay, let's see. Alex said, "If someone's reading your work for the first time, which poem would you point them to?" Hmm. Probably, a poem called Not a Love Poem. It's also pinned at the top, and, um, I think the crux of my work is always about love, and so that would be the one that I would say. Um, okay, how has your voice as a poet evolved since your earlier collections? I used to write from my head, like, I would read about things in books, and I would hear things, and I feel like I was just trying to work out my existential angst about what we're all doing here, um, and I think the transition that I've made over the last 10 years is really writing from my own life experience and writing from a very grounded and embodied and imperfect place. Okay. Maria, did writing this book change how you see yourself or your past? Oh, that's a good question. Um, of course it did. I really think this book, beyond grief and love and mindfulness and those themes, it's the journey of womanhood for me and what it means to be a woman and consulting the women in my life across multiple generations and looking around and asking that question of like what is the most beautiful and honest expression of a woman, what is our function, not in function sounds like a very sterile term, but yeah, what are those gifts that we can take ownership of and bring to the world more. um so yeah, I think just more acceptance for that journey of womanhood. um okay. See. Madison, what have you learned about love or healing through writing these poems? There is one poem that says, reparenting myself looks less like therapy and more like rolling around in the grass and laughing 10 pitches above politeness. And for a while, I really dug for my healing and I went to every, somatic worker and therapist I could. And these are all wonderful tools, but I think sometimes it's just not abandoning my inner child and letting her express and sitting with her and maintaining that relationship with her and remembering to have fun and live and that I'm not a checklist to be completed. Um, so yeah, just bringing more joy into it. Let's see. Okay, Lily, if readers could take just one lesson from your book, what do you hope it is? I have one line that says, I no longer avoid the point of breaking. I say to the world, break my heart, break it so wide open that the whole world can fit between the pieces. And if people take one thing, I really do hope it's that. Um, that the breaking is not something to be ashamed of, and it's not something to avoid. And even though it's painful, um, the most whole people that I know in life have allowed themselves to go to that place of shattering, and they've allowed themselves to find something more honest amongst the rubble. Um, Mallory said, "Do you have a writing ritual or favorite place to write?" Um, yes, my home. I'm not a cafe writer. I don't do well when there's people and noise swirling around me. I I live in this, like, little tree house in the mountains, and I have one of those reading nooks, like a window with pillows, and I just love sitting on my laptop and writing, um, and the more that I've written in that one space, the more I can feel the creative energy, if that makes sense. Um, okay. Is there a book tour? Maybe at some point. I don't have news of that as of now, but the book signing will be May 5th in Los Angeles at the Last Bookstore, so that is very exciting. Um, and okay, Michelle, what drew you to poetry as your primary form of expression? I mean, when I was little, it's similar to what I shared in the beginning of the call. I was just so afraid and so anxious, and I used to ditch school and go hide in the library, and I would always go to the poetry section because I would read books by Langley Ave and Young Pueblo and Khalil Gibran, and I would read it and I would feel understood. I would feel like someone put words to something that I desperately needed named but couldn't myself. And so, again, poetry feels like that permission slip of honesty to me. Okay, Jenny, how do you decide how much of yourself to reveal in your writing? All of it. And again, I'm not revealing personal details. I'm not saying, when I was 6, my this exact thing happened to me, or this was the person I dated. Like, I'm not revealing those personal details, but I am revealing myself, if that makes sense. And I can feel it if I'm being performative, if I'm nervous and trying to kind of put on a show, the poem doesn't do its job. Um, I really have to have the courage to strip off the armor and let myself be revealed. So I think poetry asks for that revealing in a way that very few other things do, I feel like. Um, let's see. How has writing impacted your wellness? I feel like writing is my wellness. Of course, there are days where it's so hard, and anyone who's a writer knows those days of just even getting in the chair and starting feels impossible. And sometimes the things that we write about feel impossible, and telling the truth is just that moment where the lump gets stuck in your throat and your heart is pounding. Um, but once I do it, once I tell the truth, even if it's just to myself, even if it's just in my journal, I can feel like these cracks are kind of welding over, and I feel myself becoming more whole. And that is such a gift because writing is something I can always source from within myself. And to have that like grounding force where no matter how far I spin out in life or no matter how much chaos is happening, I can come back to that grounding force. Um, can you read us another part from your book? Oh, okay. They have to be ones that I've memorized because I have all of these like live stream screens happening. Hmm. Okay. Yes, I'll do the life in reverse poem. Okay, here we go. I wish I could live my life in reverse. Make my last breath my first so I would know what it's worth. I would look at every wrinkle and wonder how I earned those lines. Who did I love so fully they made me smile that many times? What did I weep for losing? That my hair turned colorless and gray? Did my heart grow this big because of how often I let it break? Did my heart grow this big because of how often I let it break? Now I'm in my 90s. I can see my whole life from my porch, smell the summer jasmine, and feel my husband's withered palm beneath my fingertips. At this point, we read each other's minds, just grateful to share silence together after all this time. But now I'm in my 70s, and I hear the laughter of my grandchildren. They ask me how to be extraordinary, and I just say, baby, find magic in the ordinary, because the greatest legacy that you'll leave is love. But now I'm in my 50s, and I braid my daughter's hair just before she walks down the aisle, and I let her go, trusting that I raised her to trust herself. I can't protect her from life, but I can teach her how to make a mosaic from the shards of every perfect mistake. But now I'm in my 20s, and I meet the love of my life. The first time our fingers interlace, I would think that his skin is the closest I've come to touching God. We argue over what dish set to buy, and I can't help but laugh at what a miracle it is to fight over porcelain plates with him. But now I'm a child. Without a single question for purpose or the meaning of life, my laugh can rattle the stars. And I have no thought of the future, not a single scar. Soon I'm taking my first breath, and I hear my father's voice. His hands are the entire universe, and my small body is a world unto itself. He calls me sunshine, and I feel a fire ignite in me that will never go out. But now I'm in her womb. I hear muffled voices talking to me and smile, because I've waited my whole life to hear my heart beat for the first time. Isn't it wonderful just to be here, just now, just this, just this? Okay, so that's my poem. That is the final one in the book. And that actually came, I did a spoken word video for it, and I wanted to cast a woman who would play me in her 90s. And I ended up hiring this woman named Babu who has Alzheimer's. And she's so beautiful. And we actually do look alike. We're both from Romania. And um, I've always been afraid of getting Alzheimer's because my grandparents had it. And just the thought of losing my memories has terrified me because I'm always capturing and trying to record them down. And I asked if she could live her life in reverse again. What's one thing that she'd tell me? And she said two things. She said, "You are the people that you love, not your memories." And her second piece of advice was that the best men are always found in a library reading. So do with that what you will. And again, if you're interested in signed copies, if you're new here, you can just comment shop in the chat and you can exclusively get a signed copy within the next 20 minutes. So this is the space that we are handing them out. And yeah, if you're interested, just comment shop and you can get a signed copy. Okay, back to the next questions. Okay. Kendall asked, did any poem scare you to publish? The beautiful thing about that is that publishing is slow, and that used to frustrate me, just because I grew up in, like, the instant gratification generation, and now I have such a deep appreciation for it because it terrifies me to write the poems when I'm writing them. But by the time I've submitted the manuscript and by the time the book is edited and goes to print and goes through this whole process, basically, like, 8 months have gone by, and so I've managed to detach from the work in a really healthy way. And so I think it's actually very helpful and meant to be how slow that process is. So, are there poems that feel extremely vulnerable for people to read? Yes, but I feel like my fear has had time to settle. So, um, okay. Alex is asking, how do you feel before and after releasing a poetry book and or doing spoken word on stage? Possibly separate question. Do you feel like you don't own or find home in work once it's shared? Okay, many questions. How do you feel before and after releasing a poetry book? Those are different things. Releasing a book is honestly anxiety inducing. and stressful, and so full of beauty and wonder and love and all of these people supporting. And on the one hand, it's this wonderful invitation where all of a sudden I'm having people like come into the middle of my heart, and I feel like I get to like wrap my arms around the world for a second. Um, and also people are in the middle of my heart, and that's really terrifying because I'm like, oh, what are they going to see? Everything. Um, but yeah, so my favorite part of it being released is hearing stories of the ways that people find their own relationship to it. Um, and I try not to think about the rest too much. Um, Spoken word is more of a stretch point for me because I can't just like post something and put my phone in the freezer and call it a day. It's like it's my body. I'm standing on a stage. I can see everyone's reactions in real time, and so it's more fulfilling because it's something I'm more afraid of, and I feel more alive doing it because it brings me such terror and fulfillment. But yeah, those are two different things. And then separate question: do you feel like you don't own or find home in work once it's shared? I always have my own relationship to those poems, and I will always feel the place that I wrote them from and the memories that sparked that every time I perform it. Um, and I also fully accept that everyone has their own thoughts and feelings in relationship to it, and I think that's really beautiful. Um, okay, Margaret is asking, do you edit a lot or trust first drafts? There are some poems that arrive so quickly and they're just ready. And I really don't make that many changes to them. And then there are some, like I wrote one the other day about nature, and it took me 3 days. And I'm hiking right now because I'm training for my writing retreat. And so I'm hiking like 8 miles a day right now. And so it's like 3 days of 3 hours of walking, like arm wrestling with my muse, trying to find a way into the poem. And so some of them are really hard to find a way in, and some of them are just like, here you go. Um, what's the time of day that you write a lot? The morning time. I want to be a night writer because it sounds really romantic and I could have all my candles lit and stuff. But if I wake up and I don't touch my phone and I don't let the world in and I just go straight into my stories, that's when I feel the most clear work comes out. Um, so, yeah. Okay, let's see, what other questions are there? And again, if you want a signed copy, we'll sign off of here in like probably around 10 minutes. So you can comment shop and order a signed copy through that link if you are interested. And it's only available in this live. So there's that. Okay, let's see. Amelia, how many poems are in this collection? There are 200 poems. It's a hardcover book, which I'm very excited. I've wanted to do a hardcover book my entire career. And so this is such an exciting gift. And yeah, I can't wait to see what you guys think and all the things. Um, okay, let's see. I'm gonna look at some of the Instagram questions because these are two separate things. Um, do you have any habits while writing to stay focused on your craft? Ooh, good question. Practical question. Hmm. I think distraction, it really is kind of the death of art. And I need negative space to really tell the stories that I want to tell. Um, I need to allow myself like enough hours in the day where the work has time to breathe and come through, and I can really sit with it and make sure that it's at the level of honesty and craft that I really need it to be. And if I am trying to do everything at once and I'm answering emails and I'm posting online and I'm writing, it's like those are different parts of my brain. And so it's really easy for me to confuse urgency with importance and say, oh, but someone needs me to answer this email. And it's like, do they? Do they really need me to answer right now? Or can I really commit to this book, which is ultimately the gravity that my whole life orbits around, is like those longer term projects that will continue to live in the world, because I'm sure no one remembers a single thing I posted on Instagram, but um, a book will live on. It has its own life. And so really remembering like what is actually the important thing here and keeping my focus on that. Um, okay, Lydia asked, what did writing this book teach you about yourself? Ah, so much. I mean, putting the poems together, I realized how much I repeat myself. Um, like I remember hearing that 90% of your thoughts are just recycled. And I really think that's true because looking at my poems, I'm like, wow, it's just love, death, and time, love, death, and time. I'm writing about the same things until I can see I work out this pattern and then I can move on and write about something new. And so seeing that, I wanted this book to not just be around the things that I am safe and comfortable writing about. Um, like I think I feel comfortable writing about love and heartbreak. And so I wanted to ask myself, what am I afraid to write? How am I censoring myself within my own home, even? Like if I really sit there and I think about it, it's like, what do I think I don't even have the right to write? What am I that afraid of where I'm like, oh, no, no, surely not me? Because that is the thing that I should lean into. And that is the thing that I need to wrestle with, not the thing I get validated for the most. Because um, over the course of the last decade, like the poems that tend to touch people the most are the ones about love. And I feel comfortable in that. But the problem with that is what I get validated for the most as an artist also becomes my kryptonite and it also becomes my crutch. And then I'm no longer jumping into those new thresholds and keeping my work alive and evolving and changing. And so it what did it teach me about myself? That's my very long-winded monologue. um it taught me where I am coming from in persona and when I'm actually coming from like the honest place inside of myself. So, um, okay, Lydia, did you come up with poem titles first, or did the poems come first? I don't title my poems. The title for the book, titles are the hardest for me to come up with. I would rather write like a 600-page novel instead of come up with a title. It's really difficult for me. Um, and that says something because, you know, a title tells the story of what the book is in a singular line, and therefore, I have to know what the message is enough to hone it down to a singular message. And so we went back and forth on the title quite a lot, actually. Um, so yeah, and if you're just joining, you can comment the word shop to receive a link in your DMs to order your signed copy. So again, we only have a few minutes left. So if you would like a signed copy of Don't Wait to Light the Candles, this is the one time that we're doing it. And yeah, so just comment shop. Okay, I want to make sure that I get other questions answered. Do you have someone that opposes you or shows you your crutch? Yes. My best friends, Dakota and Jordan, have no trouble opposing me. They have no trouble telling me um, when I'm like being lazy or just coming from fear or I need to like come back and look at it again. And so I feel very, very lucky to have people in my life that tell me the truth. I think it's a wonderful gift because, again, it keeps me from seeking that feedback on the internet. And I think it's a lot healthier to have sounding boards in your life for your art because you want to make sure that you trust the artistic opinion of the person who's giving it, and that they know how to give feedback without like shattering your spirit. So yeah, that would be that. And are there any other questions? Again, if you want a signed copy, you can just comment shop. Um, and they will send you a link. Um, will you ever try self-publishing? I self-published my first book. I did, and I think that was a really important process for me to understand how much actually goes into publishing a book. Um, but I will say this is the most supported that I have ever felt in releasing a book, and I'm at a space in my life where I'm really happy that my bandwidth can go towards um, writing the work and sharing the spoken word poetry instead of like trying to wear 1,000 hats. And so publishers are so wonderful in that way. Um, do you have a different writing process compared to your first book? Yes. the writing process is always evolving and changing as I do. But I think now, again, the writing process comes from paying attention in my daily life and knowing that anywhere I turn can be a poem if I'm really listening well enough. So, yeah. Are there any final questions? Um, we'll probably wrap this up soon. If there are not, I'll give space if anyone has anything else they want to share. And again, just comment shop if you want a signed copy. I know I sound like a parrot, but people hop in and out of these things. So, okay, let's see. Where do you get your insights and thoughts from? Oh my. Um, my thoughts? I don't know. I try not to marry myself to my thoughts too much because I don't think that they're that helpful most of the time. My insights, my insights come from listening. And it's really easy actually right now to trade um, hard earned insights for that quick gratification of like, let me just ask ChatGPT what it thinks. But there's something to sitting there and wrestling with an idea and wrestling with your emotions long enough to form a conclusion that's embodied. Because I really believe when someone shares art from a place that they lived and earned, we feel it so much more than just kind of like asking the robot. And I'm not knocking the robot. I think it's a tool. Um, but I do believe that people feel the place that we create from. And so my insights again come from being patient long enough to really sit with my feelings and ideas on things. Um, okay. Oh wait, I saw one on Instagram. Do you write every day? Do you take breaks? I do write every day. I don't write poems every day. The poems are kind of I'm on a poetry break right now because I wrote so many for this one. But I do write my books every day or my journals every day. And even if it's just like 30 minutes to an hour, I try to keep the pulse of it alive. Um, and I also try to make sure that I don't leave my writing days when I'm annoyed with the story or when there's a problem and I can't figure it out because then I just never want to get back to it because it feels like Mount Everest. But if I like leave the work when I feel really excited and like I want to pick it up and keep going, then I'm more likely to come back the next day. Any advice for someone publishing their first poetry book? Congratulations! Oh my gosh. Okay, Kenzie. Oh my gosh. It's a big deal. It's vulnerable and it's magic and it's stressful and it's wonderful. And my advice for releasing your first book is that it's okay if it's a slow burn. I think, at least for me, I know I had these expectations of if it doesn't blow up and do well right away, then it's a fail, and that's so not the case. My most like quote successful by copy sold standards took a year to really start doing well and gain its own momentum. It really was through word of mouth. If you look at The Alchemist, for example, which has sold millions of copies, that book got taken off the shelf for a while. And so you never know. Sometimes it's less about the quality of the writing and more about the positioning and the timing and all of these things that kind of have to align and come together for a book to pop off. And so I would just say have grace and patience and do your best to show up and give your art its best chance. And then let it go and trust, that word of mouth is also still hi Ricky. um here I lost my train of thought, but anyways, you guys get the point. How much do you attribute your ideas to sensorial experiences, like just feeling touch, smell, versus ideologies and structured ideas? Um, in the beginning, my work was very much just ideology, and now I think it's pretty much my own life experience. There are very, very few poems I write that are far away removed from me, something that I haven't lived. Um, And that's why sometimes it's hard to write certain poems because if I haven't lived my way into them yet, they're not really ready to be completed. So sometimes I'll get a line for a poem and then I have to come back to it like a year later. Um, okay, let's see. We'll do a few more. And again, if you're just joining, if you'd like a signed copy of the book, we're only doing them on this live right now, and you just comment shop, and then you'll get sent a link in your DMs. Um, what's your favorite book that you have written? Honestly, this one. And I would probably say that about every book that is the most recent because it feels closest to creation and it feels closest and truest to who I am at the moment. But right now, I feel really proud of this book, regardless of like reviews or like how good the poems are structurally. I just know that I did my best. I really did, and I showed up for the poems, and I feel like I was brave, um, and so it doesn't even matter if it's good or not at this point. I just feel like okay, this was honest. Um, how do you stay inspired during dark times? I saw this poem by Andrea Gibson, and she's a beautiful poet. If you haven't checked out her work, I recommend it. But she said, "The darkness knows truths that the light never could never dare." I might be butchering it, but um, there is wisdom, there is gold, there is truth in these dark times. And some of the most potent pieces of art have come out of dark times. Lord of the Rings was written during World War II. Um, if you look at it, sometimes it is those moments where an artist has to create. They have to create because they are first responders to the human spirit. And the right poem, the right story, the right piece of music is like a defibrillator shock that helps us to all keep going. Um, so that's my rant. Um, okay, we'll do a few more. When your writing weeps forth the raw and oops, oh no, this keeps moving. When you capture that flow, how do you revise without making it as something that is too recognizably yours? Um, hmm, I know what you mean. Because I have run into this problem a lot where I'll pick up a certain, not pick up, I will hone a certain voice and style. And then again, if I get validated for it, and I know it does well, the problem is I will become a caricature version of myself versus actually tuning into what is alive in the moment with my poetry. And if I go back and I look at the tone I was using in my earlier work, it was so different than it is now. And I would have been devastated if I had stuck to that style just because it was safe and because people liked it. Um, and every book honestly demands a different tone from me. Like I feel like my essence of my voice doesn't change, but it forces me to stretch in new directions. So I don't know if any of that made sense or it was just vague poetic jargon. But there you have it. Okay, let's see. Are there any more questions? Um, kind of doing a last call. So again, if you'd like a signed copy of this new collection, you can just comment shop for the link and you'll get sent it in your DMs. And it has my signature in it. Um, and yeah, I feel really grateful. Thank you all for your support and all things. And I wouldn't be writing these books and getting to share them without you. And so I don't take it lightly, a single moment of your presence or attention or making time to read the poems. Um, so yes. Okay, let's see. We'll just do a couple more. How do you live a sustainable life as an artist? I'm assuming you mean monetarily, um, unless you mean emotionally. Those are two separate things. Um, I've always done what I have to pay the bills, whether that's just teaching yoga or facilitating retreats or doing like really weird, odd modeling jobs or whatever it is. I've always just um, been open to the fluidity of the way that money comes without forcing my poems to pay my rent. And I know Liz Gilbert talks about this in Big Magic, but I've never expected my poems to pay my rent. And there have been times that the poems have completely given back to me in that way and generated a lot of abundance. And there have been dry seasons where I've had to kind of create other things. And the only times that I haven't felt good about that is when I've used my poems in a way that they don't want to be used, if that makes sense. So like when I've done commissioned work that I'm not proud of versus like being willing to do the modeling jobs with the other things and have that separation. And now I feel like I'm so protective of my writing that I won't sacrifice my voice or the truth of my voice in order to pay the bills, if that makes sense. So like this thing over here is protected and I'm open to whatever I have to do in service to that, if that makes sense. Another long-winded rant. Okay. Do, 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 do. Um, any last minute questions? No? Going once? Going twice? So what happens in introvert live streams. Um, okay, I think we'll wrap it up there. But yeah, thank you to Talk Shop Live for hosting me, and thank you to all of you who popped in and out and shared your presence and your time. I know how many things in this world want our attention in all moments. And so it just means so much to me when you guys do give your time and your energy and your love and actually make space to read the poems and feel the poems um, and connect with them because the world is so different than it once was. And a lot of us are overwhelmed and our bandwidth is stretched. And so, yeah, for you guys to order the book and support, again, I don't take it lightly and it means the world and it helps me so much as an author. So, um, oh, Kenzie has one more question. Okay. Um, Kenzie, I'll answer your one more question and then I'm popping off into my introverted lands. Um, okay. Also, last call if you want to comment shop before I disappear into the world. Okay. Kinsey said, "How do you keep yourself from stalling in the publishing phase and know when it's time to self-publish? I can tend to get stuck in the is this ready or how much editing is okay." I would just be really clear on the kind of home that you want your book to have because I self-published my first poetry book. Um, my fantasy novel got over 50 rejections and took 2 years to get published, and it was so painful, and the rejection was super hard, and I'm also not unique in that experience. So many authors go through that, but I was really clear, the kind of home that I wanted for that book, and eventually I found it, and with this one I feel so lucky with this book because one, it's Park Row is a team of incredible, incredible women. And I feel like from the jump, the team really understood the poems and really supported the work. And I just, again, I've never felt more supported in a book launch and in a book release. And like there's so much alignment there. And so, again, it's seasonal. Sometimes it's really hard and it requires faith and it requires eating the shit sandwich as they say and taking that much rejection and then other times something really beautiful falls in your lap and there are people who just get it right away and you get that like born under a lucky star moment, but through all of those times I've just kept going. And there's no secret sauce and there's no magic recipe. And I think success looks really easy outside in, but people don't see how many devastating moments there are to get to those spaces. So just be really clear on what is the best home for my book. Do I need the support of a publisher? Or would I rather self-publish myself and like know that every process and facet that goes into that? Like just clarify the kind of home you're looking for. And then don't stop until you find it. Like just tell yourself, if I have to wait till I'm 90 years old, I'm gonna do this. And I swear, once life feels that commitment kick in, it's like, okay, here you go. um, okay. La 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 la. My brain is melted. Okay. Thank you all so much for putting up with my goofy introverted self. Thank you for your support. Thank you for everything. It's been really fun talking with you guys. Again, I appreciate you and your attention so much. This is the very last call. If you'd like to order a signed copy of the book, just comment shop and they will send you a link. and you can get my fifth grade handwriting signature in the book. But I'm seriously so excited for this. I've never felt more proud of a book. I've never felt more excited for it to get into the world. And that is all. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'll see you guys soon.